Hey Faith Family, welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast at Calvary Bible, where we go beyond the Sunday sermon to explore some rabbit holes and to bring some biblical truths to the surface. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Randy, welcome back.
It's nice to be back.
We are back on the saddle.
Yeah.
We should get some saddles in
That'd
here.
be good.
Wouldn't that be fun?
We could ask Rick Goodhart to build them for us. He built the background, so.
Yeah, he did. I prefer a leather saddle though.
Me too.
One of those.
Not wooden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were really clean and sharp, we would say like this is season 2 of Beyond Sunday.
Wow.
Because we did like a year's worth.
Wow.
And then we just hit a dry spell for about a month. So for various reasons, I was out of the country. You were.
Yeah, I mean, we had surgeries and COVID stuff and different vacations.
Yeah, with the travel
mission
restrictions, you didn't have COVID, but at the time Michelle did, and I couldn't test positive for it because we were flying out of the country. So
we kept our distance for a couple of weeks.
We did, and now we're back.
We are back.
We're back and better than ever.
I bet you're excited.
Yeah, we got people frothing at the mouth, ready to roll. So we have missed a few Sundays worth of sermons.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly. We kind of think we left off in the middle of Matthew 5, kind of right before we got into these you've heard it said examples in the Sermon on the Mount. So any words from you as far as not catching us up as far as, a whole episode worth of where we've been, but, this section in particular where Jesus has these, was it 6? You've heard it said statements.
6 of them.
So do you want to frame that for us?
Yeah, so I was thinking about anyone that's trying to make sense of all 6 of them, and they run into the problem of, I'm trying to figure out how to put this into practice with a specific incident. Mm-hmm. And I just want to remind everyone that the type of preaching that Jesus is doing is using overstatement a lot.
Yeah, you said that a couple times on Sunday.
I did on this past Sunday. So at least we could start with something that if you were here on Sunday, you might remember hearing that. So the problem with that is, though, that a lot of people hear that. And so let's say, so with all of these statements like this, if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away.
That bothered the stuffing out of me.
Yeah.
When I was younger.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
yeah. Should
I be plucking my eye out?
Right.
So.
And anyone reading that, you do have to you have to stop for a moment and say, does he mean that?
Yeah. And
so the answer is first no, but then the answer is yes. So I think maybe the best way to summarize this section of the Sermon on the Mount is to remember that the overstatement is a shock effect. It's supposed to shock me so that I come away from that. And I think this one's easier too. So if you're familiar with that, if I'm struggling with a wrong way to look at someone, if I move from a glance to a desiring, well, if that's the case, then those sins are so severe, Jesus says, that you need to do everything possible to stop that sin from occurring. And the way he said it was, hey, if your eye's the problem, get rid of your eye. So he says it that way to help me understand how serious it is to work hard against such temptations, something like that. So as you move through this section, so much of what you're hearing is overstatement. And the tendency for someone like me is to read him and say, okay, if I'm going to put this into practice, then in every single situation. So for instance, the absoluteness of the one we did the other day. So give to the one who begs from you. So if you happen to find yourself in a situation, for instance, if you live in a place where you encounter a beggar all the time, possibly the same one, the question is, is this what Jesus meant? Did he mean that every time you see a beggar, give them some money? Is that what he means? Does he mean, for instance, that you should be contributing to something that's chronic, maybe something that's self-imposed? It's not always that way,
right?
But it is sometimes that way. And so
Yeah.
I think the best that I said on Sunday was, when you see extreme language like this, and that whole section was filled with that, do not resist the one who is evil, every time, all the time. And so what we do is we develop questions like that. And the tendency for us is to say, well, this instruction doesn't make any sense, so therefore, what am I going to do with it?
Right.
And what I want to say is, remember that the overstatement is designed to shock us into the reality of, okay, we are radically changed from the inside out, so we're a new kind of people. So we are a generous people.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you give all of your stuff away? Is that what that means? Do you give everything away? And then you yourself are poor? So it's that kind of, or it's like, for instance, don't resist the evil. So what if somebody comes into your property and tries to harm your children?
Yeah.
Don't resist the evil.
Right.
Are you going to quote Jesus to yourself
No.
and just watch them hurt your children?
No.
And so, but it's one thing to say, if I said why, I would want you to be able to reason as a Christian. I am still obeying Christ because Christ didn't mean for me to allow someone to do that kind of evil to my family.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Now, there, as you know, there's different ways to read this. What I'm asking us all to do is let's get the stuff that we know for sure is what he meant, and that is, in this case, we are so radically changed in this paragraph from Sunday that we don't have the same instincts of self-preservation or concern about our own self, our own belongings. If someone sues me and takes my suit, I give them my overcoat as well, because my clinging, my possessions are no longer the most important thing. What's most important to me is the kingdom of God. Something like that. But go ahead. That's enough of that.
So generally speaking, with these 6 you have heard it said statements, and you'll finish up the last one, I'm assuming, on Sunday. You're saying that they're all overstatements.
Many of them are.
They're meant to have a shock value to them that grabs your attention and isn't meant to be another law in and of itself.
Right.
But is meant to kind of get, like, push you a little bit, shape your heart in a way that maybe is adrift.
Yeah. The shaping of the heart is, let's put it this way. Jesus is shaping your heart like this.
He should be.
He is. Not he should be.
Well,
he is.
As a Christian.
So let's start with, yes, he is. Now the should be comes in when we say, you and I both know that there's times when we're not as merciful as we should be. There's times when you and I probably think too much about our own possessions, and we shouldn't. So we start with, Jesus is shaping us this way, reshaping us. This is what faith in him does. He provides the desire and the capacity to put a text like this into practice. We also, every Sunday, assess the degree to which this is happening, and we make adjustments as we need to. Something along those lines. Yeah.
So you touched on the one from a few weeks ago about, if your eye's causing you to sin, pluck it out.
Yeah.
But this past Sunday, you're already kind of getting a couple of the questions that came in. So let's sit there for.
Yeah. Just one other thing though that you just mentioned, because you either picked it up from Sunday or you just know it. But remember that what happens to us is, if we try to figure out how to put these new laws into practice, we have to be careful that we're not being Pharisees again. So it's the spirit, and this is what most of my scholar friends end up something like this, and this has been for centuries. What we're after is the spirit of the law. That's the way they would put it. The spirit of the letter of the law says, do this. But the spirit of the law, and so it's not that's I think that's still a helpful way to think it through. Jesus is after a certain type of heart, or again, back up. Jesus is creating a certain kind of heart that's in us by faith, and the Spirit's working. So when we live our lives as a Christian, Christ's followers exemplify this new heart.
Yes.
And it's radically different from the world.
Yes.
There.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
So, no, that's great. So to kind of hone down or drill down into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I would paraphrase one of your main points on Sunday with the first one about taking oaths. You would have said this: be a person of simple and complete integrity. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here's where the legalist kind of starts to come out in some people, and so does that preclude you from changing your mind? Or what if you forget about something?
Right.
Something, does that condemn you? You
Right.
know, hey, I'll be there to help you move on Saturday.
And then,
and Saturday morning, you're just like, I totally forgot. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So taken to the extreme, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now all of a sudden you might have someone frustrated or struggling with, oh man, I said I would be there and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible person.
They are. They are.
Sure, they're sinners, but is that what Jesus is getting at? Like, if you say you're going to be there, you better be there. Yeah. And if you're not, is that sinning to forget something?
Yeah, go to the heart again. Go to the heart of the matter. If I asked you, if you were the one who did that, you said, hey, Jonathan, I'll be over. If I said to Jonathan, I'll be over to help on Saturday morning, and I just totally forget.
Yeah.
My intent was not to lie to him. I wanted to be true to my word. That was a lapse of memory more than anything. So what that requires, of course, is, Jonathan, please forgive me. That's not what I wanted to do. I was fully intending to go, and then, if you think that, well, I'm an idiot for doing that. Yeah. Or you're just human.
Sure. Yeah.
Pick one.
Yeah. You're
and
human.
I prefer to say humans make mistakes. And, there's a song that was that way, probably in your era, Born to Make Mistakes. I could sing it.
Okay. Do you want to?
No.
Okay. So that's not what Jesus is getting at here. No. Let your yes be yes and your no be no.
No. There was no intent to deceive.
No. And he's just saying, be a person of integrity.
Yeah.
Be a man or a woman of your word.
Yeah.
You say you're going to do something, just do it. And generally speaking, I would think the question I want to ask myself is, would people say that I'm a man of my word? If I say I'm going to do something, can they count on me?
Yep.
And if the answer is, yeah, I think people can count on me, then I would say you're probably fulfilling what Jesus is getting at there.
Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah.
But if if you say you're going to do something and you're someone who just, maybe you stretch the truth a little bit, or you're regularly letting people down because of maybe you're just irresponsible or whatever.
Let's do the exaggerated one, because I think we've all faced that temptation. If I exaggerate a story to make myself look better than I am, now that's something that Jesus is working hard to get rid of. So you do want to analyze the motives, which we've tried to get to. Jesus is attacking the motives. Why would somebody take an oath? Well, because they want to make sure that everybody knows they're a truth teller. No, you don't need that. Just be a man of your word type of thing. But it's the same with if I exaggerate the truth for my own self-image. Yeah, that's where Jesus is. He's teaching against that.
Yeah, the fish I caught was this big.
Yeah,
the home run I hit was 400 feet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I can't hit a ball that far.
But you know what I was thinking on Sunday? As I was leaving church, I thought, one of the ways that this is showing up in our society is talk to anybody about the way in which they build their resume.
Okay, that's a great person.
Think about that for a moment, practical. And I was thinking about some of our sharp guys and gals in the church. In this day and age, it apparently you can say certain things. There's certain phrases that you want to use, and you can actually make yourself look really good on paper. Maybe even better than your track record.
Right.
So even as a Christian, as I was leaving church, I thought, that would have been a fun thing, just kind of because you write that resume to give yourself the best possible opportunity to get a look and maybe an interview, maybe a second interview, but have you stretched the truth?
Right. And here's a question in that vein. Is it culturally and socially acceptable to, let's say you've been working somewhere for 9 years and 11 months to just say 10 years, you're rounding up to the nearest year, even though it hasn't quite been that much, and I think that's where, what's the intent of the heart? I'm not trying to get down into the nitty gritty of how many exact days I was out of position, but roughly 10 years. And what's my intent there? And is even the person who's looking at it going to say, hey, you stretched the truth there, you're not a trustworthy person?
Yeah, but how about if you happen to be listening and you were a part of some of the early pastoral searches at this church, you have a lot of stories to tell. Like one of the stories is when you get a resume and the pastor says, oh yeah, my church has 100 and something people, and the pulpit committee, is that what it would be called? The pulpit committee lands at that church unannounced, and there might be 20 or 30 people there.
Yeah.
What happened to that? The resume said this, the reality said this. The question though is, was there intent to deceive, or did you happen to just land there on the day when everybody's on vacation?
Yeah.
So I have no idea how to judge that. I've just heard such stories.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think we want to take Jesus's words to heart, obviously, but not take them to the extreme where if someone asks me, hey, can you help me move on Saturday morning? I'm not willing to commit because what if? So that's, I think there's folks out there who would say, well, maybe, or I'll try to be. And then we'll just say, sure, I'll be there, barring something else coming up, or some unforeseen emergency or something like that. So that's, to me, would seem like you're taking it too far down that legalistic path where you just can't say yes or no to anything. Everything's a maybe, or I'll try to be. Yep,
because I can't commit, because if I do it wrong, I'm violating
Jesus'
law.
Words there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get into the second one here if we can real quick.
Sure.
Verses 38 through 42 here say what to do if someone kind of gets after you a little bit, the retaliation section. So the question, point 3 in your notes says, Christ followers don't retaliate. So how do we, and you kind of already brought it up already, how do we differentiate between retaliation and defense?
Yeah, so the best that I could do on Sunday was to say, please remember that, like the Proverbs, this teaching of Jesus requires wisdom for you to implement. Every situation is going to demand something different from you. You're going to reason it differently. You're going to evaluate it differently. And so that I still say is, the difference between self-defense, which is right, if we can say that, and I'm putting that in quotes if you're just listening. Self-defense, which is right and God honoring, versus another type of trying to save my honor or my dignity or something like this, which was certainly being slapped on the right cheek, that terrible public insult. Am I willing to be humiliated like that? Am I willing to be humiliated like that because I don't have value in and of myself? My value is found in my relationship with God. Can I say that truthfully in my heart because I'm being remade by Christ? So I think there's only one answer to that, and that is you need to have the wisdom of God in these scenarios so that you can tell the difference. Because the bottom line is what you're looking at a sermon that has no elaboration. Now, think about this. Jesus teaches this sermon now, and you're not the only one that's thinking, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? So it must be that Jesus is counting on the fact that you're going to walk with him, you're going to trust him, you're going to keep learning and growing. And through your lifetime, my guess is you're changing. And so even different seasons of life are just a time to experience your walk with God a little differently. So I would say that there's really no other answer. And Jesus expects us to question these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I just finished a couple of books this past week thinking about next year's disciple making stuff. And I read the one, reviewed the other over the last couple of weeks. And that was one of the big deals is, do you have a sense in which the Bible requires you to exercise wisdom in order to put it into practice? Because there are no specifics here other than the details of this first century, which is really not where we live anymore. We're a long ways removed from this.
Yeah. And man, we like when things are black and white.
It'd be easier.
Oh my goodness.
It would be easier in a way. It would be easier.
Exactly. Well put.
But then we would be, I think Jesus would still be trying to offset. If everything was spelled out for us, then that would change our faith. And I think he would have to shock us another way or something like that. In other words, we would fall into the same legalistic tendency.
Yeah.
A law for everything.
And these three examples that are given in the first part of that section they all seem to be connected in a few ways, like they're personal attacks. It's not an attack against my family or a group of individuals. So we're not talking about, defending someone who's...
Or defending your country.
Yeah,
it's not even public national. That's a great point you're making.
And in a society that is so steeped in the honor and shame kind of way of thinking
back then,
correct? All of these would seem to be slaps in the personal face. Someone coming after you or shaming you in different ways. And Jesus says here, no, it's okay.
Or someone coming up to you, you're working. Let's pretend you and I work for a living. You're working and a soldier comes up and says, Jonathan, I need you to carry Jonathan and Randall, I need you guys to carry the luggage for a mile. Drop what you're doing. It's like, who are you to tell me to drop? But that's just the way it was.
It was the way it was, yeah.
And what's happening on the inside of us? It's like, wait a minute. This is our life. We're working. And Jesus says, no, that's not what you do. Go 2 miles.
My life, my time, etc. And two, I was just thinking about this is a Roman soldier who's requesting this, and the animosity between a Jewish man and a Roman soldier. Again, I'm imagining walking through the streets carrying a Roman soldier's stuff and just the shame of that. Like, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be doing this. And everyone kind of watching you, trudge his stuff around. But that's what Jesus is kind of getting after here. This maybe some of the personal. My
sense of self.
This
radically changed sense of self and value and worth.
Right. And I think the wisdom too is balancing this, being able to balance this sermon from Jesus and then also seeing how Jesus responds. Because one of the questions here is, well, how do you hold that up, this sermon in Matthew 5 to Jesus in the temple, cracking whips, flipping tables, and rolling heads, essentially. And that's not a meek. Right. Meek was the word I was going to use. And humble. Well, I'm just going to let it go and passive. And but that was in that temple example. That's not someone coming after Jesus. No. That happened at Calvary, right, on the cross.
Exactly.
This is someone defaming and defiling what's holy and to be,
In that case, Jesus was defending the honor of God, let's say. Yeah, the quick answer to that is Jesus can do that because he's Jesus.
Yeah, he can. And I would say to a degree we can and should too. There's certain biblical standards and principles that we ought to hold in high value and regards as well. And we should probably be willing to fight for some of those things.
Oh, yeah. And so, a question like that just reminds me, again, the fun part of being a part of Calvary Bible Church, if you've been here for a while, is people know the scriptures fairly well. So if you're reading through the Bible, for instance, like the book of Acts, there's lots of times where Paul and the others, they are not responding to the letter of the law that Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount. Paul, for instance, has a hard time with one of the interrogations. And he gets slapped in the face and he responds harshly, doesn't realize he's talking to a high priest. And I just read this section yesterday. I was like, whoa, Paul, simmer down a little bit. Yeah. So there's, you're reading the scriptures and there's times when the letter of even this new law is, oh, wait a minute, that's not followed.
Yeah.
Good point.
And so what I came away asking myself on Sunday is just kind of like a response type question is, I should take an honest assessment of myself when I read passages like this. And so coming away from it, asking, am I a person of integrity? Can people count on me if I say something? For the first example. And then for the second one, am I a counterpunch plus one person? Am I a person who's going to rear my aggression when someone comes after me personally? Or am I someone who has a humble, low view of myself and is okay if people don't think highly of me or if they treat me badly? Well, how am I going to respond in those kind of situations?
And you use the word humble, and I almost use that as the title. The second part of that, he creates people of integrity and humble people, because humility, I think, did capture a lot of the essence of that paragraph. It does. Can we just remind everybody of one other thing too? Remember that the whole section is peppered with judgment warnings. So we're reading verse 20 all the time. So as you do your assessment, realize that Jesus says, no, this is the type of people I do create. So it must be a part of your character. It must be, it's not perfect yet. Although at the end of this chapter, we get to that famous verse on Sunday, this coming Sunday, Lord willing, you therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. No pressure there, right?
No.
But the bottom line is, remember that the warnings that he's given in verse 20 and then sprinkled throughout the rest of it just reminds us that these are not optional things. Christ does create this in all of us.
Yeah.
So they do need to be there.
That's good.
Yeah.
So looking ahead to this Sunday, we'll finish out that section.
Yeah.
Any teasers for us?
Well, just that whole thing, the law has said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but now it's going to be love your enemy too. And then at the very end of this, it's that great text of, we need to be perfect people. And how can that be? How can he demand that? I think it's one of the greatest gospel presentations, even though it looks like a law section. It looks like the greatest law being perfect, but it's actually, in my mind, it's the greatest gospel presentation. How could he say that?
Okay.
So
that'll suit well for Sunday.
Yeah, we'll see.
Good deal. All right. Sounds good. Well, if this episode raised any questions for you, please don't hesitate to reach back out. As always, through the sermons on Sundays, as the mind is turning, shoot those questions to us, podcast@cbcmj.com. We love to field them here in this format.
Yeah, especially if you're thinking through the week or on Sunday, I really want to put this into practice, but I'm struggling to do that because that's really what we're trying to get at.
Yeah. Yep.
Send all the other theological questions. Send those to Austin.
Yeah, Austin@cbcmj.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we'd love that. All right. You want a quick joke?
No.
They do. What's the worst part about sitting in traffic?
Let my yes be yes and my no be no. I think I said no.
What's the worst part about sitting in traffic? Getting run over.
Oh.
All right, there you go.
I was sick.
Cue the outro music. All right, we'll see you guys next week with a special episode. We might be dressed similarly. Love you guys. See ya. Bye. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode. And remember, our Sunday sermons are meant to lead us to a life of worship beyond Sunday.